Vir liefhebbers van kuns kort hierdie man langs my geen bekendstelling nie. Dit is Emmanuel Enkara, deesdae die direkteur vir E&K Public Art, wat bietjie meer met ons gaan gesels oor hierdie plan om openbare kuns te maak en dan ook oor die kunste. Emmanuel, how are you doing?
I'm good, Irene. How are you?
I'm fantastic. So tell us about E&K Public Art. It's obviously this big movement that you want to start. Where did that idea come from?
So E&K Public Art Group is a non-profit creative art organization, and we commission, facilitate various public art initiatives locally and globally. So the first thing is, what is public art? Public art is putting art in public spaces. So as much as we love going to galleries and drinking fine wine, it's a needed thing for artwork to come into our cities and our towns on an everyday basis. These installations are either murals, which is paintings on the walls, sculptures, art installations, even urban design. So we want to bring that trend to Namibia locally and globally. Of course, locally, Namibian artists creating in Namibia, and globally inviting internationals to create in Namibia, and in turn sending Namibians to create in international countries. So that's what we tend to do.
And this is all for the promotion of mental health, I believe, among the general public. So I think obviously all of us like to see a painting, but what do you think is the connection between painting and public art and somebody's general mental health, overall mental health?
We have, as a mandate, our board conceptualized 7 pillars. One of those pillars is mental well-being, mental health, the psychology, because art has a rehabilitative nature to it. Especially visual art. Of course, all the arts, film, music, there's especially visual art. So we know countries around the world, there's an example in Denver, USA, where they put an art installation at the end of a street, and you could see the environment just changed within that street. And so we know that if we take a town, and it's a harsh example, it's a current example, but Okanja, if we would have to flood the entire walls, all these vacant walls, painted by the visual artists from that town, which means the economic, the funds stay within that town, the mental health will change for the better. Because every day to work, on the way back to work, you see color, you see expression, you are proud about where you are living, and that is a very key player for for public art. Yeah.
And do you think there's a recognition? You obviously are a member of the Arts Council as well, but which is somehow, close to government, I guess you could say, adjacent in a way. Do you think there is, especially from our leaders, from government, do you think there's a recognition for the power that art can have on a populace?
There's always been a recognition of the arts, not to where a populace of 3 million where we would want it to be. You would think that with a smaller population, we would have more of an appreciation for the arts, but it is what it is. So, but I do believe that the current president, she is really having an evolution of the arts. Of course, she announced that we would have a 50 million kitty, or a budget for the arts awards, which now encourages artists to really put their game in, because now there's funds for a whole new arts award, and that's just very encouraging. And I do believe the policies and the procedures are in place to evolve the arts, the film industry, the theater industry, the music. The music always has its ups and downs, but visual art wise, I think we are in a very good place, and that good place is introducing public art, and I'm so privileged to be a part of it.
So tell us a little bit about, we spoke briefly before we started recording about the public about how there's kind of this belief that even pre-independence, we never really had a public that appreciates art in Namibia. Do you find that to be true? And how do you think we get the public involved, if you think that it is so?
I think it is true. I think it is true. It's two things. It's one, it's the clear as day example, or the clear as day reason is just the funds that you could make as an artist. That stigma, whether you were a musician, whether you were, an actor and such like that, or a painter, you would always have the family, pushback on, are you getting enough funds to rent or, move on with your life and such like that, build a family? And sometimes, most of the time, the answer is no. And still in 2025, the answer could be still no. But I think times are changing, and I look at public art as a very good source of change, because these installations, these artworks are big money makers around the world.
Yeah.
And if we are able to get internationals to tell us, or we already know as an organization, but if we need more proof from the international world to tell us how important public art is, we can do so. The other thing that you said is that you said pre-independence and such like that, how art was appreciated then. Of course, there was a lot less to do because there was only a few focuses, survival and such like that. And visual artists like John Mafangeu, were creating art and didn't know his value at that time. But now his artwork is being sold for 1.5 million and such like that. So within the soul of Namibia, there is art. There is art in every soul of every single country. It is now time for us to, we've kind of stabilized, and I do believe the president has brought soul back into the government, back into leadership.
Yeah.
And I think she knows that she needs to bring art with that. And it's a good time for art until we reach 2030.
Yeah. So just quickly talking about the president, talking about the government and art and how those mix. Obviously, we have this massive unemployment crisis in Namibia, and it seems that we cannot stop talking about it. And I don't think we should. It's a very, very big struggle for particularly the youth in Namibia, qualified youth. What is the potential, do you think, for art in that space, given that so many people have the time and have the will to do something, but cannot spend it productively contributing to the economy directly in a company?
There needs to be organizations and platforms put into place where these individuals, these graduates, can come to and look for a source of opportunity. In the visual arts spectrum, there are ENK Public Art Group, the Namibian Arts Association, Project Room, Bell House, Start Art Gallery. So every art form needs to have those ones in place so that artists know that there's a light at the end of the tunnel that I can go to, a formalized place. That's really the key, because if those places are not in place and if those places are not managed well, then the artists really have no hope. Then they will now go to working from the street, working from hand to mouth, and bartering and renegotiating their prices when they actually should be priced at a price that is respectable. But they always have to lessen their thing because there isn't an organization that stands behind them. So at ENK Public Art Group, we know that a mural for 10 by 5 meters, our price, there's a standard price, and we don't negotiate lower than that. So those are the standards that each of these organizations need to uphold. The artists, the graduates just need to, you will have instances where they say membership fees, or you have to register and such like that. And the artists kind of frown upon that. But to the artists, I say, just learn about the organization that you want to follow, whether it's music, film, or visual arts or theater. And then they will help you get where you need to be. Yeah, in a formal and professional way.
Okay, formal and professional way. I think what you mentioned there about, not negotiating lower than a specific price kind of prevents that Mafangeo problem that,
Yeah.
In his youth he was not appreciated as much as he is now. But we will talk a little bit more about the Mafangeo problem, about artist problems in Namibia after this ad break.
Welcome to Namibia, where adventure meets tranquility. With Enjoy, you have access to a wide range of accommodations to suit every traveler's taste and budget. Experience the finest dining and hospitality Namibia has to offer. Booking your dream accommodation is just a few clicks away with Enjoy. Join thousands of happy travelers who have trusted Enjoy for their Namibian getaway. Your gateway to unforgettable Namibian adventures. Visit us today at enjoy.my.na.
Emmanuel Inkara still with us on Klets Kompas. Emmanuel, now we get into the hard-hitting questions. I'm not going to give you the hardest-hitting question just yet. I'm going to give you some time. But I do think what's important to speak about when you talk about Namibian art and about African art is the Western standard. We spoke again before we started recording about, artists needing a catalogue and so on and so forth. Do you think Namibian art is in some way bound by Western standards and Western specifications for art?
I think that the younger the country is getting, and the country is getting younger, we will always look to the West for examples. In the arts, a copy is always everything is just a copy of something else. So there's no shame in looking to the West, looking to the East. I tend to look to the East more. So looking to the East for examples of how to develop or evolve your skills within your art form. But there is a market for Namibian true stories, the storytelling of Namibian art. Film, I think that if you want to have an action film, for example, there's no need to have cars blowing up and gunshots and things like that, because we don't see that as normal human beings on the everyday. Or lately we have, but we don't see that on the everyday. But tell a Namibian story, tell a purely Namibian story with a little bit of a twist, and then it'll be a seller. Music, I think the music is doing very well. I think if something has to be truly representative of our nature as a Namibian, all the music forms are doing very well. And then with visual arts again, I think the fine art is a predominant feature within our spectrum of visual arts. Very fine art and such like that. And to be honest, I encourage the artists today to look to the West, to bring contemporary art, to bring abstract ways of thought into the spectrum of Namibian art. Because I love we all love the paintings of people sitting around the fire and the older ways and such like that. But it's now time to really evolve art to a more contemporary, more abstract landscape. Yeah, the West is welcome, but we still need to tell our Namibian stories.
So using a Western idea to tell a Namibian story, I think, or Western lines, let's say Western lines, tell a Namibian story.
You could say it like that, yeah.
Okay, so then obviously the Namibian arts industry has been going on for a long time, with the arts sector. And it has its almost cult-like following, where the people who follow arts follow it intensely. What is next for development in the arts in Namibia? Do you think we're doing enough? Let's start there. Do you think we're doing enough to develop the arts in Namibia?
I think we are doing enough. Everyone's waiting for 2030. It's as if we're turning 30 years old. Everybody's dreading when they turn 30. I think with the next 5 years, there is a very good chance that the arts will take that jump. And we spoke about it just before we came on here. And why is there no appreciation and such like that? Certain people in other sectors don't believe that arts, contributes to the GDP. And the biggest problem within the arts, and this is not a Namibian problem, this is a world problem with a lot of countries, that it's a very hard thing to quantify how much the arts sector gives to the general GDP of the country.
Yeah.
Because so much of the arts is done informally. When Tate David sells his artwork at home, when somebody just picks it up for $700, he will now take that $700 and just use it without kind of
Keeping logs of
keeping
it.
log of it,
Yeah.
or nobody will want him to keep a log or notify him that he needs to keep a log of that, and then it's gone. So that is the hardest thing to do within the country, and with other countries having the same issue. So I think within the next 5 years, especially for the visual arts, because I do believe the film sector has mediums to quantify when we have these international
crews coming in and yeah.
coming in, there's always regulations and such
Yeah.
like that, so you can regulate what's going and coming. With music, I think the same thing. NASCAM, we're holding you accountable, of course. With theatre, I think the galleries, the theatre is doing well, the NTN. So it's just now visual arts. It's time for visual arts, the portraiture, the sculptures, to step up and say, what are your sales? What are your numbers? And then we can say, okay, this is how much they contribute. And then the engineers, the doctors, the mining people will say, okay, we respect the art sector because this is how much they are giving towards the table.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we need to do between now and 2030.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of respect for the arts, here comes the hard-hitting question. Emmanuel Nkara, are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
I think we also need to talk, obviously corruption is a very big buzzword in Namibia in general, but especially when you look at the arts sector, there is money coming in from the top and not reaching the artist at the bottom. Is that indicative of potential corruption in Namibia, or do you think that there are other spaces that it is legally that money is going to?
I think that the funds, especially from where I am sitting at the National Arts Council, the funds have been totally utilized where they need to be utilized. Especially, we have programs, the grant cycles that we have. We have a budget, or I believe, of around 1.8 million or 2 million for every year. And then the bursaries as well. I sit on the bursary committee. I'm the deputy chairperson, so I can tell you firsthand that all those funds have been utilized accordingly. And then we also have sponsorships and partnerships that we give out every year to organizations that are consistent with helping the arts grow forward. So from that standpoint, I believe everything is in check. But I'm not going to sit here and say that other organizations or under other doors are not being opened incorrectly.
Yeah.
And it is a incorrect thing to do, obviously. It's a depressing thing because you are stifling the evolution of the art sector. You can't comprehend what a utopia of funds and a utopia of the people involved in the arts will be like if you just do things correctly. If you just do things correctly, if you respect the artists for their work, and if the artists are not up to scratch, then there are those incubator platforms that are there. The Namibian Arts Association has an incubation process where they take visual artists, incubate them, and perfect their skills. Because if I'm not drawing in the lines, the Namibian Arts Association will teach you to draw in the lines. And I think every art form should have that incubator: music, theatre, and film. So, yes, indeed, corruption is everywhere. It shouldn't be everywhere.
Yeah.
But I think the younger as we get as a nation, I think it's now time to realize that let's just do the right thing, because it's for the betterment of the country. And I do believe where we are sitting, especially since I've been on the Arts Council, I've seen the landscape of the country within the arts, and I'm very happy where it is.
Yes, and you briefly spoke earlier also about that guy selling his painting for $700. I believe our the crafts that we're selling on the roadside would fall under that same definition. What are our practical steps in going from here to a formalized arts sector for those guys who are just kind of selling from their homes and selling from the side of the street?
I've wondered that for many, many days, for many, many weeks. Of course, in my private capacity, ENK Public Art Group, as the founder and the executive director, that is one of my main focuses, obviously, public art. And my term on the National Arts Council is ending shortly, so perhaps I'll have more time to do certain things. So looking at that question, I have conceptualized an approach, and it's step by step. And I must say to Jacques, who is a lecturer at UNAM, he also had a similar approach. He wanted to start something similar. He was going around offering to get funds to actually start the process. So the process will be as such. Crafts, as you say, crafts, portraiture, pottery. You know, you dissect the visual arts into their specific categories. And then you say that wherever this category is doing whatever they're doing, so if there's a pottery show, if there's a visual arts show or a gallery show where they have portraiture, or there's a craft area, these people need to now log each day their sales, but just go very slowly. You don't have to pressure them to say, what have you done throughout the entire year? Because they won't be able to give you those numbers. Just tell them, and the process needs to be very simple. SMS line needs to be the standard. It needs to start there. Don't scare people with apps and websites just yet. Start with the very simple thing of an SMS line and say, Mr. David, you are a crafter. This is the platform. Please just SMS for free. It has to be a free platform. For free, SMS how much money you've made if you've sold anything. And then Mr. David will now put in that log. And then somehow, if it's with the MTC or whichever platform, we collect that data. And that's one example of how to go about it. Because it'll be hard to travel to these countries, and obviously awareness would have to be for 2 years before you even start the SMS line.
Yeah.
You know, it's an old man's game here, but it has to be done eventually. So that's why I say in the next 5 years, I think that on the 5th year, that's when you announce the platform. Don't rush it. It doesn't have to be rushed. So that's how I'll do small bits first, get people knowledgeable about the platform, and then within 5 years, we go live.
You go live. Thank you very much for joining us, Emmanuel Inkara. Dit was Emmanuel Inkara en jy het dit self gehoor. Jy eet 'n olifant bietjie vir bietjie, happie vir happie en dieselfde blyk waar te wees vir die kunste.